Today we're going to be taking a look at the Peakdo Wireless Gaming Handheld, though it's probably not going to do what you expect. Today's video is brought to you by Brilliant.org, because, well, I'm not so brilliant. Brilliant has a course designed to keep you engaged with thousands of interactive lessons without slashing into your limited spare time. They say math is just another way of seeing things, like putting glasses on your brain. Say you want to study physics. You can start small with foundational mechanics and eventually move into quantum objects. Brilliant is an essential tool for professionals looking for development in a time-scarce world. Best of all, it's built for busy people, blending a better balance for beginners, making it a breeze to boost your brain without busting your balls. Brilliant. Visit brilliant.org/craftcomputing to try everything they have to offer for free for a full 30 days, and the first 200 people will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Again, that's brilliant.org/craftcomputing, and thanks again to Brilliant for sponsoring today's video. Brilliant, it's the best way to learn. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. So this is the Peakdo Wireless Gaming Console, but console might be a little bit of a misnomer. This is not a Windows handheld like the ROG latest release. This is not a Steam Deck based on Linux or SteamOS. This is literally a wireless HDMI monitor with a set of joysticks attached, a la a Switch. And it promises latency-free gaming in your household from any console or PC. Now, Peakdo is a company that's known for their nanometer wireless or 60 gigahertz wireless HDMI. So this is not something that's done over HDMI or a cloud streaming setup. This is literally a hardware system with an HDMI dongle on one end and a wireless monitor on the other. Now, full transparency here, Peakdo did send over the console for my review, and it is currently live on Indiegogo and Kickstarter, so take this review and the pre-release hardware with all of the salt you can muster. But just like all reviews on this channel, no money changed hands, and Peakdo does not get to see the video before it goes live on YouTube. As far as the hardware goes, we're looking at the 7-inch model, although they also offer an 11.6-inch larger screen with the same controllers on the side. This is a 1080p IPS panel with a 500 nit brightness and a claimed 97% NTSC color accuracy, which is actually a pretty impressive spec given the size of the panel. As far as walking around the device, we've got some buttons on the top for power, menu, and adjustment, as well as a 3.5mm audio jack, microphone, and a USB Type-C charger that does support 20-watt fast charging. Inside of the unit, we have an 8,000 milliamp battery, which promises somewhere between 3 and 4 hours of latency-free gaming. As far as the design goes, you can definitely tell the influence. This is straight out of the Nintendo Switch playbook. In fact, this is almost the exact same 7-inch size as the Nintendo Switch. In fact, it's also using Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. These are a third-party Joy-Con with some really nice Hall effect joysticks, but these will actually mount directly up to a Nintendo Switch and work. In fact, case in point, let's take my Nintendo Switch here, pop off the Joy-Cons, and let's put on the ones that were included by the Peakdo. And there we go. We are now in Tears of the Kingdom. So as far as the form factor goes, it is a nice tried and true form factor. And if you're looking for a slightly more portable device to carry around the house and be able to stream your PlayStation or your Xbox, it's actually not a bad way to go. But as far as an overall usability standpoint, that still remains to be seen. So let's go ahead and get this thing plugged into an HDMI device and run it through some paces. So included with the Peakdo are obviously the unit itself and the set of Joy-Cons. We've also got the HDMI dongle, which is your wireless transmitter. We've got a couple different USB Type-C cables, one for power and one for data. And also included is a Bluetooth adapter for the Joy-Cons themselves to connect to your Xbox or your PlayStation. So for testing, I'm just going to go ahead and fire up my GPD WinMax 2, and we'll plug in the HDMI dongle, which unfortunately also needs power because HDMI does not transmit enough power to get the dongle up and running. Now, one thing I noticed in testing is that when you plug in the HDMI dongle, it doesn't immediately detect it as a display output, even though the power is plugged in. In fact, it only starts to detect it as an output when it connects wirelessly to the display. So you'll see here in just a second, we should click over right there. We detected the display. And now we're duplicating directly from the laptop to this over 60 gigahertz wireless. The problem with that is if we ever lose signal or communication with the dongle, your PC will revert back to its onboard display or revert resolutions back to what you had it set before, which means there's going to be a serious interruption in gameplay and potentially crashes depending on your application if you ever lose that wireless signal. So on top of being a 1080p IPS display, it also supports 10-point touch and, again, transmits wirelessly over that same signal. And that's a pretty cool thing to see. Not that my WinMax 2 needs to be much more portable, but hey, now I've got both form factors available to me. So far, I've been able to get the wireless video and the touch working on here, but I haven't been able to get the Joy-Cons working because these are basically just third-party Joy-Cons. They're sold for the Nintendo Switch by Binbach, binbach.com if you want to look for these. And Peakdo did include a Nintendo Switch emulation dongle for connecting to your PC and other devices, but I can't get these to sync. And in fact, when I plugged in that, it interfered so much that I lost wireless signal to this. This is all still plugged in. Oh, did it just... Okay, there it reconnected. Well, 60 gigahertz shouldn't really interfere with the 2.4 or even 5 gigahertz and vice versa, but 60 gigahertz can be a little finicky, depending on placement of radios. So I have tried this a little bit, just driving the mouse and keyboard, and I can tell you, they promise 0 latency, and in fact, their actual spec says about 4 milliseconds. It's more than that. It's not a lot more than that, but I think it might be about a frame. If you're at 60 FPS, I think this might be about a 16 millisecond delay. You can see it especially with the mouse darting back and forth because the mobile display lags just a hair behind when you're snapping the mouse and then you stop it. This one trails for that ever so slight longer amount. There we go. Hey! All right. We've got our Joy-Cons all up and connected. All right. There we go. So imagine this is my desktop PC or my console, and then I've got my wireless screen here in front of me. Let's go ahead and find a game. As far as the display goes, it is a beautiful display. I am definitely a fan of it. They claim 500 nit. I fully believe that, although I don't think I'm going to go through the testing of validating that. But again, Peakdo is known for their wireless HDMI protocols and their portable screens. And to that end, they use those a lot as mobile monitors for cameras, and it's kind of where their wheelhouse is at. So I have no reason to doubt them. As far as blur or latency, honestly, in-game, I would say if there's any latency, and like I said, there's probably about 1 frame, it's pretty imperceptible so far. But as I jump into a racing game, I'm realizing something that I probably should have realized already in my testing, and that's they're using Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons for their input here. And in fact, they included a Nintendo Switch Joy-Con dongle for USB to emulate an Xbox 360 X input controller. Anyone who plays with Nintendo Switch devices knows that your R2 and L2 buttons are not analog. They're momentary press buttons. So even though we have full X input compatibility here, I have no analog triggers. Not exactly what I would recommend for those looking to replace their Xbox 360 or PlayStation type controllers. The screen is absolutely gorgeous though. Tons of contrast. The blacks look super good. The shadows look amazing. The highlights are completely there and not blown out. Really impressed with the screen. And now that I had to fiddle with it for literally 30 minutes here, look, it's not a great experience. The technology is very, very finicky, and as Rhett mentioned, I thought it had 30 meters range. Here's the problem with 60 gigahertz wireless and the nanometer wave that they're talking about. You can lose signal just that easily. See how that stopped moving? We've completely lost signal. Now my controllers still work because the controllers are on a separate dongle, but my video and my touchscreen, they're gone. Now if I turn this back, there we go, we reconnected. Hear the audio fade? It's just that easy. 60 gigahertz Wi-Fi, or 60 gigahertz wireless, nanometer wave wireless, has none of the penetration power of Wi-Fi. The higher up your frequency gets, the less able it is to punch through different surfaces. The problem is that on this laptop I found, just by turning the laptop away and losing line of sight with this handheld, I completely lose signal. It has still not regained it, unless I turn it back around. Now, give it a couple of seconds. Hold on. Oh, solid light. And we're reconnected again. When we're connected, it's a fantastically stable signal. And, you know, moving the handheld around, everything is pretty fine. And remember, this is 1080p 60 hertz being broadcast with no compression artifacts, because there is no compression. We're sending raw HDMI over to this device. But that's also how easily we can lose that signal. And if you're talking about gaming, okay, we lost half the signal. If you're talking about a gaming device, and if you're specifically talking about zero latency and competitive style gameplay reaction times, any interruption is too much interruption. And Rhett walked between me and the console a couple of times while we were testing, and it would drop connection just as easily. And when it drops for 5 to 10 seconds just from someone walking by. Or in some cases, even from me just turning like this, I would lose signal to this device. So, is this a console I can really recommend? The Peakdo really feels like a solution in search of a problem. There's not been a single instance that I can think of that I would like to turn to a bespoke handheld device with Nintendo Joy-Cons attached to the side to play my PC games in line of sight of my PC. 60 gigahertz wireless definitely has implications when it comes to wireless VR. That is, you can put an antenna up nice and high and transmit basically lossless HDMI signal over HDMI and get that zero lag interface that VR desperately needs. But when it comes to mobile gaming, there are so many other options out there that you probably want to consider first. Now again, as we've been doing in some of these style reviews, I reviewed the product, but I do not know the price yet. Rhett, I'm sure you have the price cocked and ready to go. What are we looking at here?
On Peakdo.com, they list the 7-inch handheld streaming game console for $350.
Hard pass. Hard pass.
But what about the Joy-Cons?
You know, the Joy-Cons have probably been the best part of this, because I've taken these off and I've used these on the Switch, and these are by far the most comfortable Joy-Cons that I've ever used. The majority of my Tears of the Kingdom playthrough have been done on these Joy-Cons. So I can't say this entire package has no potential value. The actual website, yeah, these are $60 Joy-Cons. They're not inexpensive. So yeah, $300 for the wireless display. I could definitely see some use cases for wireless HDMI transmission, especially if you're into the video production side of things or into live streaming. More of the video live streaming, not necessarily gaming live streaming. Because in those instances, you're looking for zero latency HDMI monitoring and recording. And honestly, $300 for a wireless raw HDMI system is not really a bad deal. The problem is, just by sticking a set of Joy-Cons on the side of it doesn't make it a gaming product. And as good of a screen and as good as the wireless transmission is when it's working, there are so many problems when it comes to actually using this as a gaming device. Let's look at some alternatives in roughly the same price point. If you're just looking for a streaming device, and specifically if you're looking for PC streaming, you can get something like the Anbernic Win600, which is a $300 handheld, albeit with a 720p screen, and it's running Windows instead of a Linux OS or bespoke hardware for wireless streaming. But using something like Moonlight, it'll get you everything that you want to do at very, very little latency for about the same cost. Plus, you have a dedicated gaming console that can emulate games up through GameCube and Wii and PlayStation 2 that you can take on the road with you. This, at the end of the day, is just a monitor with some Joy-Con ports on the side. So, one of the most interesting products that I've taken a look at in quite some time, but I feel it just misses the mark. I can't imagine anyone looking for zero latency wireless gaming is in a situation where they're going to be within line of sight of the device they want to stream wirelessly. In fact, if you wanted to do that, Sony just came out with an all-new handheld that streams the PlayStation 5 for that exact purpose, where you can stream the PlayStation 5 within your house to a bespoke handheld. And I think they're only asking $300 for it. Now, it's not wireless 60 gigahertz HDMI streaming, but that solves that issue, and for less money than this does, with analog triggers. If there's a potential market to this, I'm just not seeing it. Have you ever wanted to take your Switch to the couch with you? Yeah, a heavier Switch with Joy-Cons that you still have to pair natively to the Switch, so you still have to be within range of that to make it all work, and the Switch has to be in a dock, versus just picking up the Switch. I don't understand. Do you want to stream your Xbox to a handheld device? Cool. The Win600 will do that. Cool. The ROG Ally will do that. Cool. The Steam Deck will do that. Do you want to stream your PC? Literally any handheld device will do that these days with the help of Moonlight or Sunshine. So I just don't see the potential market for a wireless HDMI screen when it comes to gaming, as good as the screen may be. If you have an idea for a market or a use case for this, let me know down in the comments below. On your way down there, make sure to drop this video a like and subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Follow me on the social medias at Craft Computing, and if you like the content you see on here and want to help support me in what I do, consider going over to craftcomputing.store and picking up all of the things that you need for your home bar, and start drinking like a pro. That's going to do it for me in this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys. Beer for today is from 10 Barrel's Throwback 12-pack. It is the Joe IPA Classic, an IPA clocking in at 6.9% and 70 IBU. So the 10 Barrel Classic Throwback 12-pack, they're re-releasing a lot of beers that kind of made them into the craft brewery that they became, again, before they were bought out by InBev, but hey, they're still good even after the buyout. So the Joe IPA was originally released in 2015 and is very much a hop-forward, very dry, very bitter and sour IPA. A little bit beyond what most people would consider a Northwest IPA. So you can go with, you know, the Stone or the Sierra Nevada Pale, and those are very classic West Coast IPAs. This one takes it a little bit further. Instead of being a little bit citrus forward, this one's more of like the super bitter and sour grapefruit and cut grass. It's a little bit more earthy, a little bit more vegetal. Definitely a style you have to like. It's not going to be something that every craft drinker or every novice beer drinker is going to come out and go, yeah, that's absolutely amazing. These are the IPAs that people love to hate, but also IPA drinkers love to drink.